March 1537. For nearly 20 years, the Spanish have been on a mission to conquer South America with their infamous army of conquistadors.
The legend of El Dorado starts to take hold amongst the Spanish, and so they look everywhere all over South America.
Among the inspired conquistadors is Gonzalo Pizarro. He's the half-brother of Francisco Pizarro, the man who conquered the Inca Empire and brought boatloads of gold back to Spain.
Because of the strength of his last name, Pizarro has been made the vice governor in Quito, which is modern-day Ecuador. But he has bigger ambitions than just being the local vice governor.
In 1541, Pizarro sets out on his own quest to find El Dorado.
Pizarro enlists the help of his childhood friend and cousin, Francisco de Orellana.
Pizarro speaks to a different indigenous group in Ecuador, and he's told that the gold that De Quesada seeks is actually much further south than where he's looking. It's some 600 miles south, and it's not even in the Andes Mountain region.
Avoiding the mountains sounds like a really good idea to Pizarro, but he doesn't realize this new destination is just as treacherous. According to his sources, El Dorado sits on the shores of a river deep in the Amazon rainforest.
In February 1541, the two men leave Quito with 340 Spaniards and some 4,000 indigenous people.
They end up being some of the first Europeans to explore the Amazon jungle.
After 11 months, the crew has traveled nearly 200 miles with nothing to show for it.
By the time Pizarro's company gets to the banks of the Coca River, most of his men are either dead, dying, or very sick. They've lost 3,000 natives and 140 conquistadors. They've run out of food, eating their horses to stay alive. It's less a quest for gold and more a fight for survival.
The expedition is on the verge of mutiny, and so they make a plan to build a boat to travel down the river.
On December 26, 1541, Pizarro tells his partner, Orellana, to take 50 men in the boat down the river to find food and bring it back to the rest of the team. The current of the river is strong, so Orellana makes very good time. Unfortunately, it's 14 days before they find any food. And because of the current, they realize there's no way to turn around and go back. So they decide to just keep going forward.
After 1 month, Pizarro realizes his old friend is not coming back.
Pizarro thinks maybe they were attacked by a hostile tribe, but he also starts to wonder if maybe his cousin has betrayed him. He thinks, if I had found El Dorado, would I come back?
Gonzalo Pizarro takes the remnant men who were stranded on the side of the river and arrives back in Quito, literally shoeless and in rags, and he vows that if he ever sees Orellana again, he's going to kill him.
Meanwhile, Orellana continues his journey.
The swift current has carried Orellana's team even farther, and they still haven't seen any trace of a city of gold. Eventually, they meet up with the much larger Amazon River. He figures this is the sacred body of water that will eventually lead to El Dorado.
At first, it seems he might be right. As they get further into the Amazon basin, they start to see these great settlements, thriving cities with people all adorned in gold. These locals feed the Spanish and even teach them some of their language.
As the Spanish keep going, they hear stories of even bigger, more opulent cities deeper in the jungle.
But the farther they travel, the less friendly those encounters get. They start running into native groups that are defensive, and then native groups that are attacking them and keeping them from being able to land anywhere on shore.
One of these attacks actually leads to the naming of the Amazon River. It doesn't have a name until June 24, 1542, when Orellana and his men are attacked by a local tribe where the women fight right alongside the men.
He refers to these women as Amazonas, based on the mythical Greek women warriors described by Herodotus. Orellana starts calling the area the River of the Amazons, and the name sticks.
Finally, after 8 months and over 3,000 miles, Orellana and his crew reach the Atlantic Ocean.
Even though he doesn't know it yet, Orellana has just successfully traveled the entire length of the world's longest river, and he's the first European to do so. But unfortunately, he does it without reaching El Dorado.
Once Orellana is back in Spain, he has pretty much one goal, and that is to get back to South America. He is convinced that he came so close to finding the real El Dorado. He basically makes the pitch to everyone that he can do this, that he will find the city of gold, that if he gets the supplies and the funding and the crew that he needs, he will be able to go straight to El Dorado itself.
His pitch works. On May 11th, 1545, Orellana departs from Spain.
The disaster of his previous expedition is fresh in his mind, so he is attempting to be more than prepared this time around.
He brings 4 ships, more than 300 men, and supplies to build an additional 2 ships when they get to the mouth of the Amazon to help them navigate up the river. He has everything he needs. He knows the way. This time, he can't fail. They sail first to the Spanish-controlled Canary Islands, where they spend the first couple of months loading supplies, getting the ships ready for the open seas, and recruiting more men.
The next planned stop is the Cape Verde Islands, off the west coast of Africa, which the Spanish also control.
It's here where Orellana's expedition starts to really unravel. There's an epidemic that kills 98 of his men, and then another 60 of them desert. He's down so many sailors that he decides to abandon one of his ships entirely and cross the Atlantic with just the remaining 3 ships.
The Atlantic crossing is a disaster from the outset. One of his ships is blown off course and he never sees it again.
This costs Orellana an additional 77 men, more supplies, and all of the material that they were going to use to build those additional 2 ships to navigate up the Amazon.
In spite of that, on December 20th, 1545, Orellana arrives on the east coast of Brazil.
When he arrives, he has only 2 ships and fewer than 100 men. This is not a promising start to what he knows is going to be a difficult expedition.
Orellana may have been here before, but this time he gets lost. The mouth of the Amazon is a wild tangle of tributaries. The group travels over 300 miles trying to find the entrance of the Amazon River. The journey is over before it's begun. They never even got anywhere near El Dorado. In fact, they never even got into the main Amazon River itself. And if El Dorado is hiding deep in Brazil, they'll never know.
In the end, less than 40 of the original 300 men survive by making it back to the island of Margarita, just west of Trinidad.
After the collapse of Orellana's expedition, he's basically branded a liar. People began to suspect that he made the whole thing up, or maybe that he was just covering up for having abandoned Pizarro, or that he just wanted to secure funding for his next expedition.
But the rumors of El Dorado sitting somewhere along the Amazon persist. And over the next 100 years, a handful of other expeditions to Brazil are launched, all of which turn up nothing.
Eventually, the search for El Dorado in the Amazon appears to die out. Then, in December 2020, astronauts on board the International Space Station spot something peculiar near Bolivia.
Pictures from space show what appears to be rivers of gold weaving through the area. They turn out to be illegal gold mining operations, and they are huge, which is obvious if you can see them from space.
This evidence reignites a modern-day hunt for El Dorado, this time in a whole new area.
In 2022, a team of researchers led by Heiko Prumers from the German Archaeological Institute head to the Bolivian rainforest to do 3D scanning of the landscape from the air.
And what these researchers discover is absolutely amazing. It appears to be an ancient civilization that's been lost for centuries.
There are pyramids 60 feet high, rectangular structures, paths and roads. It's like a city hidden inside the rainforest.
The team estimates this settlement was abandoned nearly 500 years ago, around the same time the conquistadors arrive.
Krumers estimates that it might have taken researchers centuries to find these cities in the jungle, but the LiDAR technology allowed them to find it in a matter of days.
Further aerial investigations have turned up geoglyphs and massive roads the size of highways. All of this leads us to believe that Orellana was telling the truth about the cities that he saw.
Unfortunately, a full expedition proves too difficult.
The Amazon basin itself is enormous. It's more than 2.7 million square miles. And about 2 million of those square miles have never really been explored or studied. It's an area the size of India. There's a lot we still don't know about the interior of the Amazon.
It's just so overgrown and impenetrable. The access is difficult, the terrain is difficult, the weather conditions are difficult. There's no way to get in equipment.
For now, aerial studies are our best bet for finding any answers.
So it seems that Orellana wasn't lying, that he was telling the truth, at least about the cities. We can't be totally sure about the gold.